Now, let's duplicate this again. Again, you're having different versions for your client, so don't always assume that your client doesn't like that. I can't tell you how many times this happened to me where, let's call this version 3, and let's call that FT for fancy text, and let's publish that. So actually what's happened to me in the past is the client says, oh yeah, we definitely don't like that. And you go, oh, okay, I'm going to trash it. Never trash it. Always leave yourself a way out, version 2, version 3. Always have something safe to go back to. Very important step. Okay, so here's what we need to do. Since we're actually doing something very, very different, which means that we're going to use a new add-on element called fancy text, we don't really have need or use for this other element. But what we could do temporarily is we can keep the other elements that we can copy and paste. Now, it's not a lot of text, so it really depends on what you want to do. I'm going to choose to simply just delete these other ones we don't need. So I'm going to delete them all except leaving one behind. Now again, if you want to copy and paste that text we had in there so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, then I would suggest that you can do that. So here's what we need to do. First of all, we need to go to Visual Composer. We need to put in an element, and we're looking for Ultimate VC Visual Composer add-on, something called Fancy Text. Now you're going to look through here and go, Fancy Text? Well, I don't see Fancy Text. What's this guy talking about? I don't see it in mine. Let's type in Fancy, F-A-N. No, doesn't come up. Why doesn't it come up? Well, it's because we talked about this earlier. If we go into the properties of, let's go into plugins. We can do this a variety of different ways. We can go to Brainstorm. We go into Dashboard, etc., etc. We want to actually, let's stay on this page. Let's update the changes for a second. Okay, so we could do that in Brainstorm. We could also go into Install Plugins, whatever you feel is simpler. Okay, and if I scroll down to the bottom here, you can see that these are the settings for add-on Visual Composer. So I'm going to click Settings. And based on these settings, we notice that Fancy Text is not turned on. So I'm going to turn on Expandable Section. I'm going to turn on. Now, part of the reason these are not turned on by default is they do take up a little bit more memory allocation, depending on your computer. Advanced tabs, I'm going to turn that. So I have plenty of memory on my computer, so that's really not an issue. And I'm going to save those changes. So now, what I've done here, if I go back to my pages, actually, if I go back here, let's close this window out. If I go back to my pages, all pages, and we're going to select the page we just created, which was the one with FT for fancy text. So now, if I go back into here, as soon as this refreshes, and I pick Ultimate Add-ons, then I can now see that I have fancy text as part of my display, which is right here. Now, you're really going to love this. This is really, it's one of my favorite things. It just makes your site look so incredibly amazing. Now, what we need to do here is I don't need this text blocks anymore, so I'm going to delete the actual text block. Now, keep in mind that the text block, before we actually go into this, you might want to recall the settings that I have here. So under Design Options, I have 250 pixels top and bottom. So to be very lazy, I'm just going to copy that out of there, and I'm going to get rid of that text block. Now, if you want to keep that there as a reference and then delete it later, that's totally up to you. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go to VC, and I'm going to pick Fancy Text. And it's going to put my Fancy Text element in there. And at this point, I'm going to put some fancy text in here. So we're going to put think, learn, earn. Okay, and the type is going to be type as opposed to up, down, left, right. We're going to line this to the center. We're going to select a font family. I don't have any extra fonts installed, so we'll ignore that for right now. But I'm going to make this 72 pixels high, which is 1 inch. And we're going to make the color be white. And we're going to save the changes. So there's my fancy text, and that tells me the text that's inside of that. So the really nice thing about this particular add-on here is that even though the type is white, it's telling me what kind of text is in there. So I'm going to take this from here, and I'm going to drag that right up to there. So it's right inside of my first row that I started to begin with. Does that make sense? And I'm going to update that change. So this row I no longer need because this is just a duplication of where fancy text was. So I'm going to take that and delete it and get rid of it. All right, now, drum roll please. I'm going to hit the update button, and this is what fancy text does, which is really pretty cool. I'm going to preview the changes, and it's going to do this. Oh, what happened to my background here? Hang on 1 second. Did I not? You know what? I think I might have deleted the wrong one. My mistake. Yes, I did. I deleted the wrong one. Now, I already updated the changes, so I can't do that. So, image parallax, we're going to do vertical parallax, and we're going to pick the image. And the image we're going to pick is that first image. And we're going to save the changes. We're going to go back to this fancy text again, because we need to set the margin space in top and bottom. Actually, my mistake on that. I'm going to do that inside of the container itself. So I go to the container, and for the design options, we're going to set the padding to 250 pixels to the top, and 250, which I could have pasted, by the way, because that's part of the reason I copied. So I'm going to save the changes and update. So now if I go to preview, you will see what fancy text is all about. It does stuff like this. Now you might say, oh, okay, that's nice. But watch this. This is really a cool part. Now keep in mind, I just have the one image. Okay? If I want to keep just the one image, but I want to have multiple messages come up, watch how cool this is. So what I can do right inside of my text box is I can just do create, design, edit, publish. Then I could do think WordPress. Then I could do create, select, edit, which is also one of my advertising shticks I did back in the day. Again, this is aligned to the center. I can do any kind of suffix or prefix I want onto that as well. So if I want to do a dot, 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 I can do that as well. So watch this. So now, again, this is just a single page, but this could have been your opening splash page or a call to action page. So now I'm going to get some really cool things happening. How cool is that? I mean, it took me literally seconds to do that. Now, whether you want to type in all caps and spell WordPress, I spelled WordPress correctly. So it's just going to repeat, and those settings and how fast it moves are part of your parameter settings inside of the fancy text dialog box. So it's really cool. I mean, I think this is really cool. When I found out you could do this just with a few mouse clicks, I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff. Okay, so let's go back into here again and just explore some of the other options with fancy text. So I can say slide up. So I'm going to save the changes, preview. Now there's really no reason to do a backup version if in fact you just simply want, so as it's just going to stay there for a second and it will just slide up to the next one. That's actually pretty cool too. And again, this is denoted by how you set this up. Okay, so advanced settings. So again, keep in mind, this is 3 seconds. So if you want this to be like 1.5 or 2 seconds, then I would change that to 2,000 milliseconds. And how many times you want to show it? How many times you want to be visible at a time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to hover over and pause. Okay, so let's try that. Animation speed, etc., etc. Again, milliseconds is the 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. Go into typography, add a new collection here. So I can add whatever fonts I want here. So I'm going to add, let's add this, let's add that, let's add that, and let's add that. And exactly how I did it is exactly how it's done. Okay, so I've added those fonts. update font, and let's go back. Again, this opened up a brand new window, so I can just close that down. So now if I save the changes and I come back into that, I should have options for different fonts. So typography, and there's my different fonts, and I'll just pick the Acme font. 72 dots per inch, which is 1 inch high. Update the changes and preview. Okay, so it's just going to stay. I think this is really pretty cool. Hey, what do I know? All right, so the next video, we'll build more pages using the Parallax theme, and I'm going to go back to the I like to type across type of thing. We'll do that in our next video, so stay tuned.